fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye-bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry. I'm a bitch. All the bitches back. Stone cold sober. As a matter of fact. I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No,
She's back and a little rusty because it's been a while. But greetings, salutations, welcome. I am Landyn Shaw. You are listening to my podcast, No Fucks Left, and an all-new episode. And yes, the first all-new episode in quite some time. Longer than I ever intended, and for that, I am sorry. I did feel the weight of letting down my quote-unquote audience, which I know feels weird to say, but I did feel that weight. It just, once you hear about my summer and kind of everything I was juggling, and you know me, I'll be very honest and straightforward about everything. I hope that you'll forgive me. It's great to be back, though. I am thrilled. I missed doing this. So let's just roll right into the business of the day, which, according to my list here, the first thing we must start with, again, it's been a while. Yes, the word of the day.
What's the word? The word of the day. What's the word? What will Landyn say?
Every time I hear this theme song, it just brings a smile to my face and tickles me so much. I just love it. So the word of the day today is very appropriate for kind of the mood that I'm in, as I am still in celebration mode a bit because I recently had a birthday. And I love birthdays. Oh my God, do I love birthdays. I am such a Leo when it comes to birthdays. And it seems that in my orbit, many of my friends and colleagues and people that I'm connected with, they too are celebrating a birthday. There are many Leos out there. And we sometimes get a bad rep. And I am going to try to dispel that every chance I get. But when it comes to kind of being the center of attention or being in the spotlight, I am a Leo through and through on my birthday. In this house, we celebrate birthdays for at least a week, if not more. So we are in birthday mode, and therefore birthday has to be the word of the day. So you know what to do. Every time you hear the word birthday, you're going to scream, you're going to shout, you're going to dance. If it's your birthday, let the world know. Lord knows I do. I make sure everyone knows it's my birthday. You know, having an August birthday, especially growing up, you didn't have school birthday parties. And at least in my case, my parents really didn't do anything special for me necessarily. And so I vowed as an adult I was going to change that. And damn it, I have. So birthday is the word of the day. Scream, dance, just be crazy, have some fun, tear it up. And to all my fellow Leos and people that are in my family even that have been celebrating birthdays, happy birthday to all of you. I hope it was a great one and that all your birthday wishes come true.
Who's the greatest baseball team around? Who is the team that gets all the others down? It's easy and forgive me if I boast as I say, it's the Cubs, Cubbies all the way. Welcome to Cubs Corner.
So I'm sure you've heard this term, the dog days of summer or the dog days of August. And I remember first hearing that be linked to baseball and the baseball season, how it was kind of this point in the season where everyone was kind of grinding, and it was probably most likely for most cities the hottest time of the summer. And it was that kind of hill that you had to get over before going into the final month of the regular season and into postseason, which for most of the years as I've been a Cubs fan, we didn't even think about the postseason. I remember hearing this, I don't know where I first heard it, but like Cubs standing for completely undone by September or something like that. and it was just a running joke. There was always next year. What team are you going to support in the postseason other than your Cubs? Because let's face it, the Cubs will never be there. And then suddenly they were. And they were there for more than 1 year and then 2 years. And we obviously won the World Series. So, the fandom and being a fan of the Cubs comes with a lot of ups and downs and ebbs and flows and what have you. And this season is really not disappointed either. And if anything, I would say this season's been a little more difficult for, I think, Cubs fans to digest. So I just want to highlight that and talk about that. I would be remiss if I didn't have a Cubs Corner, because the last time I talked about the Cubs on the May 30th episode, we were 35-22 in first place, which we pretty much held for quite a long time. It was quite nice. So I want to just share my thoughts on that. And I also just want to start by saying that those that are Cubs fans, that are diehard fans like myself, we suffered kind of a big blow this year in that we lost Ryne Sandberg, who I think will forever be tied to being one of the main faces and players of the Cubs. I know for me, since I was about 10 or 11 when he first came on the team, like, he was one of the first stars that those in my generation maybe really clung to and really knew about. Later, eventually, we would have Mark Grace and Sean Dunston and Andre Dawson at that time too. But Rhino really just stood out, and his number 23 would become really big in Chicago for obviously reasons like Michael Jordan. But I just always, and you can ask my wife, I don't know players' numbers that often, but 23 I knew. And I knew that it was Ryne Sandberg's, and I knew that if I were to ever be a baseball player, not that I ever considered it, I would want to be like him. He was, and I even knew this back then, but then the tributes, you learned even more. He was just an amazing person, like a phenomenal player, and then just this great human that never really had any negativity surrounding him, no scandals. He wasn't swaggy. He didn't have a bat flip. He didn't bling out anything. He just showed up every day and gave 150% and truly looked like he loved playing baseball. He just loved it. Always the smile. And he really will forever be in my heart as an important player and an important reason for me to fall in love with the Cubs as I did. And I kind of even had some cool interactions with him over the course of, the years beyond him just being a player. I saw him at the theater twice in Chicago. And the first time I saw him, I was like, oh my God, Ryne Sandberg, sees theater, forgetting he's a human being and he has a life and he does other things. It was just really kind of weird for me to see someone that I admired so much so many years later kind of be in my world. I thought that was really fascinating. So much so that then in 2001, he was our special guest at a production that I was the general manager for of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in Chicago. I got to meet with him and hang out with him kind of pre-show. We had our photo taken. I don't have that photo. That's the one of very few photos in my life I really wish I had. I just remember being able to hang with him for 30 minutes prior to the show. And again, I don't know why he was there or what the connection was. I just know it was one of the coolest moments I've experienced. And my career and journey through theater has afforded me that opportunity every once in a while where I'm just like, oh my gosh, pinch me. The other time was when I was working in, I think 2018 with Cirque du Soleil and this holiday tour of their show. We got to do a performance in WGN, and they had all these plaques and memorabilia that was just specifically dedicated to the Bozo Show, which was a big deal for us in Chicago and WGN, and then the Cubs, because the Chicago Cubs really were very much synonymous with WGN, to the point that when we win and we sing that song afterwards, we still mention You can catch them all on WGN. It was a big deal, obviously. Harry Carey and WGN was national, and that's what helped the Cubs get a national audience. So it was really, really not lost on me that I was getting this opportunity to be so close to history and be so close to something that was such a huge part of my life. And then to be able to do it through theater was really cool. And I'll never forget that experience. So Ryne Sandberg, we will miss you. And I think that's an understatement. You will never be able to be replaced. He's a dude, as Mark DeRosa on MLB Central would say about like Kyle Schwarber. That's how I think of Ryne Sandberg. He's just a dude. He's such a great athlete, great baseball player, phenomenal second baseman, and then just this amazing human, father, grandfather, husband, just a really, really good person. And that was a big loss for us this summer. And that hit me. I had a lot of great memories watching him. And so now, without an appropriate segue, I shift then into kind of what I feel most Cubs fans feel with this particular season, as it looked like we were going to kind of maybe be in first place, if not for all of this season, most of it. I had big expectations, I'm sure everyone did, about the trade deadline and us really getting a couple of key big players to kind of help get us to that point and maybe even be a part of our future. And when that didn't happen, I was really taken aback. And I started to really become disgruntled as a fan and be like, wait, what is ownership doing? Are they the ones that are doing this? Are they limiting Jed and the team from getting good players or spending money? And I really took it personally, especially because by that point, I think the announcement of the All-Star game being in Chicago in 2027 had come out. I know that was a big deal. I know they invested a lot of money. I'm happy to see it. I hope against everything that I'm there at that game. I would love to see it. But I'm just, we have many other things to worry about in our world, I know, but I'm kind of sick of ownership of the Chicago Cubs almost acting as if we're a small market team. We're a large market, and this is a franchise and kind of a history and with the stadium and everything that even when the team's not playing well, it's still pretty much sold out because people want that experience. And so I imagine that if you're owning the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field and you've done everything you've done around there, you're almost printing money, especially because you now have a casino or a sports book or whatever that is on site. And you now have the marquee television and you're carrying other sports. And so I just feel like the financial health of the organization has probably never been better. And I was just really disappointed to see that we didn't make an investment. And now I think we're kind of suffering a bit right now. You knew that a slump was probably in the future of the team. One of the things about the Cubs that we've come to appreciate is that instead of just one or two players going through a slump, and they do still, it always seems that the team manages to go through a slump at the same time where no one can get a hit. And the pitchers suddenly, no matter how well they've been doing that season, things aren't working. And the team is just kind of like, ugh. And again, as a diehard Cubs fan, we go through it and we've seen it. This year, there was a different feeling and there was a different energy and you really felt good. And I almost would equate it to how maybe a Cardinals fan or a Yankees fan feels, where you're like, oh my God, our team's phenomenal, like from day one. And I can't wait till we're in the postseason and you're maybe already thinking about the World Series. And I'm not saying obviously that is not going to happen, but it's going to be difficult. I don't think we're going to win the division now. That's for sure. And hats off to the Brewers. What a great team. Amazing players. They made the investment at trade deadline, so they're reaping the benefits. And it's just, I've been disappointed. I'm still not giving up hope. I did give up hope, I think about a week ago. I thought, oh, forget it. Like there was a period of time where I didn't even watch a couple of games, in a row. I was just so frazzled and disappointed. I am a Cubs fan and I'm not proud of this, but it's just the fact. how the team does can really affect my mood, and it really does. And when things are going well, as they were for a lot of this season, I was riding high. I was loving watching the games. I, have a tradition, and it was really great. And then things just kind of started unraveling. And now I hope we still hang on to our wild card position, and I hope that we are playing baseball into October. And if they can make a long run, that would be fantastic. I just worry about maybe the future too. I want the ownership to start making it seem like they care about a winning team. They care about the fans. They understand that, entertainment is entertainment, and that's great. But championships are good, and playing in the postseason and kind of being a team that people maybe are afraid of a little bit. Like the Cubs can be that. And we've been that, within my lifetime, within the last 15, 20 years. We were a team that was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. We may not win this time. And that was fun. Whereas I think before the mentality was, up, here we go. We're going to play the Cubbies. Let's see, maybe we'll get a series win out of this one. So I just needed to share that while this season has been great and there's been many, many good highs, and I'm sure there will be more before the end of the season, I'm just disappointed in ownership, and I'm sure that sentiment is felt by me and many fans. And I really hope they do something about it, because I love being a Cubs fan. And since they gave us a winning team and gave us a World Series, now I love being a Cubs fan of a team that's doing well and winning, because I think we can, and I think we should be. Like, right now we have a really good team. And if they did a couple of moves and got a couple of great players, I think we could be a very strong team for several years. When you look at the likes of Mike Bush and Matt Shaw and PCA and even some of our younger pitchers and Daniel Palencia and those prospects that are stepping up, Owen Casey, like it's going to be a good team if they get some of the key pieces. So I just needed to share that. Again, it's been a while, and the Cubs have very much been on my mind, in addition to everything else I've been dealing with this summer, which I'm about to talk about right after this break.
This is another segue, a segue, another segue, ooh la la. This is another segue, a segue, another segue, ooh la la.
What I Did on My Summer Vacation by Landyn Shaw. So if you listen to that episode, I know I mentioned that I was in Holland, Michigan, which is the home to this fantastic summer theater that is celebrating its 53rd year, Hope Repertory Theater. Now, let me first say that, and I think I shared this even in that episode, I fell in love with Holland and just that entire region, that entire area, like Sagatuck, basically just, Western Michigan, right along the lakefront there. Growing up in Chicago and being a Chicagoan, I don't know why we never went to Michigan, but we didn't. We always went to like Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana, etc. I guess everyone just felt like Michigan is so far away. So I was shocked that it took me really that long to even get there and be able to see the beauty of that state and that region specifically. And I just loved it. My wife came up, the professor, twice, and she loved it. We brought ZuZu up there for like 5-6 weeks, and she got to swim in Lake Michigan, and it was just amazing. And so I will say that part of that was one of the main reasons I kind of didn't get done what I wanted to do, as far as like really working on my memoir that much, or doing a lot of reading and just kind of, working on my stuff in addition to obviously my job. I was an equity production stage manager, which is not an easy task, especially in the summer that I had. So I had this grand vision of doing the podcast every week, interviewing people, doing live episodes, all of that. And as I kind of got settled into my role and what this life was going to be for the next couple of months and stuff, I started to shift, and my mindset was like, oh, okay, Landyn, instead of just like cranking out a podcast and editing and da 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 and doing all that, maybe just take the time to process everything that's happening and come up with a game plan and kind of just take stock of where you are and use this opportunity to be away from, your family for a little bit and away from kind of the noise of politics and television and all of that, and just detach a little bit to the extent that I could. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm not saying that that was the right thing to do, but I do think I'm better for it because it forced me to be alone with my thoughts for a lot of the summer and kind of strategize and put some things in perspective. And so it was very, very good for me in many ways. I loved Michigan. I loved working on the shows. I loved the people that I got to collaborate with and create such great art with. And I loved that I got to have my wife come up and we got to kind of do a vacation in a town that I'm imagining to a tourist is maybe a little pricey because, it's very resorty and kind of somewhat posh a little bit. So I always love it when I get to work at places like Cape Cod or, one of my dreams is to work or visit Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and these kind of places that at least right now, as I look at my life, I would never be able to afford to go to those places. There's just no way. And so when I get to work there as an artist and kind of be able to share that with my wife, it's such a pleasure. It's one of the things about this industry in my career that I didn't really know about or understand until I was doing it. And oh my God, it's such a great benefit and such a great perk. I love traveling. I love seeing new places and shopping and food and culture. And it was just fantastic. And Holland is beautiful. Every Saturday they were doing protests. And these were older folks, like the older residents were taking up Saturday afternoon from I think like 12 to 1 every Saturday. They would stand right along this main drag across from City Hall, encouraging people to honk as they were driving by in the weekend with their boats and stuff going to the lake. And they just really were very active and very engaged. It was just such a wonderful community. Lovely shops, like I said. One of the coolest movie theaters I've ever been to, called Sperry's. I saw Fantastic Four and Superman there. It was great. Awesome experience. The college is really beautiful. I felt really safe. And that was a big thing. Believe me, I did not take that for granted, that I felt very safe. And I had my apprehensions. Hope College is a Christian college, and I was really worried. And there were a couple of incidents that happened kind of out of the gate with human resources and some things that I was like, oh gosh, this is making me anxious and I'm really nervous. And then it all kind of just worked out beautifully. And there were issues, believe me. They had a lot of teen camps. They had these like Christian camps on campus, and there were some derogatory and offensive things that were said to me, directly to me. One day, I'll give you an example. I was walking to the parking lot from the theater, and a bunch of kids were there with their I Love Jesus t-shirts and all of this. And then at the same time as I'm walking past, one smart-ass kid says, dude looks like a lady. And, I was kind of like, oh, is that a compliment at first? And then they started joining in. And as that was happening, another person in their group went, tranny, 2 o'clock, dude looks like a lady. I was like, you guys aren't singing the song correctly. Like, you're actually kind of complimenting me. If you think I look like a dude, which I don't know that I did, but if you think this dude looks like a lady, well, then it's working because that's what I'm after. But I could also tell it was not coming from a good place. And that kind of thing happened more than I expected, especially with the teens and the young kids. And just, general looks here and there and what have you. But I felt really safe. I love Meyer. I am now a huge fan of Meyer. So to those of you in Michigan, you understand that. I know there's one in Illinois, or a few, and I hear that more are getting it. Meyer's a great store. And it was all just really wonderful. And like I said, I had a summer to then kind of just be alone with my thoughts, not worry about cranking out a podcast or meeting deadlines, which alleviated a lot of pressure for me. Because as much as I love doing this show and this podcast and having this outlet, it is a lot of work and it is a lot of stress. And I was reminded of that because kind of the guy that even got me into podcasts just as a listener and then kind of inspired me to do one, Mark Maron, happened to be announcing as I was there this summer that he was retiring and that his show is ending. And again, for whatever reason, totally unexpected, that really hit me really hard. And then when he started explaining why he was ending it and kind of what was happening behind the scenes, I went, oh, yes, I can relate to that. The pressure of producing something and giving it your all and making sure it's perfect, because I'm such a perfectionist. And then you put it out there and you don't even know if it's having an impact, at least in my story, in my case. I don't know to what extent this podcast is doing for people. I don't have that feedback yet. I can't wait for it. And so you don't quite know what your reach is. You don't know if this is just being made in a vacuum. And I think if I were younger, I wouldn't worry about that. But at my age and given what we're going through in our world, it forced me to kind of just sit back and be like, is this something that I need to keep doing? Should I keep doing? What is the benefit? Is it worth the cost of, just the stress and the time and all of that? And of course, since you're listening to this now and the summer's over, I came away with, yes, it is worth it all. And it is important. And I love doing this and I want to continue doing this. As a matter of fact, I would do this 5 days a week and churn out 4 different shows if I had a staff and a team in place that could do the editing for me. Mark has been working with this same producer, Brendan. I hear his name all the time. I should know that. I think it's Brendan. And they have a good thing going. They've been together for, I think he said, 16 years on the show, the podcast. But then prior to that, Brendan was his producer at Air America. And so they just have this great relationship to the point that his producer can sculpt a conversation and can kind of be a second voice to Mark that Mark trusts and says like, hey, I don't know if I would include this section here. I don't know that you meant for that. And I just really was like, oh, that would be really cool to have someone like that I could build this with. And my hope was that was going to be my good friend AJ. And I'm happy to say that it kind of is again. Because over the summer, we could talk and work things out and kind of delegate the responsibilities and idea of producing it amongst ourselves. And then I know you've heard me talk about Ryan BALMER, who I've had an amazing relationship with for quite some time. I was Ryan's vocal instructor and kind of then acting instructor. And we just really meshed quite well. I love Ryan's family. And Ryan came on board as an intern in that winter, spring, and then stayed on. And now I'm happy to say is my media manager, handling all of the social media aspects. And again, the stuff that I would love to do, but I just can't. I don't have the time. And also, I'm old and I don't know how to produce great content. I'll be the first to admit that. Speaking of old, I just turned 52 a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, it was just a very interesting summer because younger me, who was way more hungrier and, well, I wouldn't say way more. I'm still very hungry and driven. But back in the day, I would have worked 24 hours and did work 24 hours many times to ensure that a product I was putting out was perfect and that, I was really proud of it. And I really pushed myself quite hard. And this summer, I just told myself, like, hey, take some time to figure things out. Because if you don't, and you're going through this major change of like transforming and living in this world as your authentic self and literally trying to be seen as this other gender, like, you're not going to give that everything that I think it requires if you're thoughts and attention and, you know, energy is split up amongst all these other things, you know, I just felt I was liable to miss something, or I was liable to make some mistakes. And I'm going to make mistakes. I know that. I constantly make mistakes. But I just thought for myself it was good to take a seat and just put things in perspective, and really work on myself, if you will. And I think it was helpful. It worked. I was okay with the silence. I was more than okay with the silence. It was quite lovely. And I was able to also draw from my experience of being around a lot of younger folks, as I worked with a lot of college kids and kids that just graduated college. And, you know, I went from a time in my career of being like the youngest person there to suddenly like almost being the oldest person, which I was just like, oh my God, that was surreal to me. And I was only 51 at the time. Now I'm 52. Now I'm really old. So it was just a great summer for me to kind of just take stock on what I have, to enjoy my time with my dog ZuZu, which, oh God, I love her, to watch my Cubs, to kind of make a plan here. And then most importantly, to not get mired down by the muck of politics and what was happening, even though obviously we must be aware and continue to be aware. I just needed a break. I really did. I needed a break. And then personally for me, some things happened prior to my going to Holland that kind of I needed to process and deal with, one of which was my relationship with my stepmom, who, if you've listened to the show, I call my mom. She got remarried right before the summer, maybe not right before, I think it may have been spring. But as of this day, today, I haven't spoken to her since we had a phone call within a couple of weeks of finding out she was married, and that phone call did not go well. And I drew a boundary and stuck to that boundary, and it was hard, and it still is hard. You know, I had my first birthday without really my family per se, my brothers and my mom. And, you know, I got a text from her, but it was very short and very, you know, to the point. And yeah, I'm still dealing with that, obviously. And then when it came to my memoir, I was having a very difficult time writing about my bio mom. And as I continued to work on that and forming those chapters, it just forced me to kind of wrestle with a lot of things. And so you might sense a different energy and a different tone in the show. It may seem like I'm floundering a little bit because my confidence has lessened somewhat. And I'm okay with that. It's actually kind of exciting to not have that confidence, and maybe that kind of confidence, and I don't know if it was real or fake or a combo of both, maybe that confidence and not having it to the extent that I did will be a good thing for me. Because I'm jaded. I'll be the first to admit that. And in the closing segment of this show, you'll hear in a new segment that I'm going to constantly roll out because I have to. Yeah, I'm kind of a curmudgeon-y, jaded, not set in my ways, but set in certain ways and beliefs and philosophies, specifically when it comes to theater and the craft of theater and producing theater, that this summer I had to kind of either reevaluate or renegotiate or or look at and be like, do I still want to continue being like this? And so, again, to have to put out an artistic product every week that I am very purposeful and very passionate about, I think would have not allowed me the time to get my own house in order and just get my shit together. You know, the other kind of milestone or birthday that I mentioned at the beginning that I celebrated was on August 19th, just 3 days ago, was the day that I publicly told the world, you know, via Facebook and social media and everyone outside of my immediate family that I'm intersex and that I'm going to be living my authentic self, and be presenting my authentic self, which is as a woman. So like, I knew that was coming up at the beginning of the summer, and I knew that I needed to kind of figure out, well, what was that year like? What have you learned? What things would you want to change? How would you deal with things as it connects then to the government and politics and just, society writ large? Like, making sure that I'm following my gut and I'm just listening to my intuition. And it's weird because I find myself being in a position where I'm being selfish for the right reasons, but I'm having to then bargain with the artistic side of me. And for so long, I only identified as being an artist, of being an actor, of being in theater. Like, that was my entire identity. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong, or it's a fact. That's all it was. If you said Landyn actor, Landyn artist, Landyn theater, I was great. That's all I wanted you to associate me with. And now I want to be seen as a human. I want to be seen as a woman, as a role model, as being an inspiration, as maybe being known for my sense of style, or how I just present myself. And I'm also figuring that out too. This summer I had to figure out how to be a stage manager as a woman, like on the fly. I did it last summer in Connecticut for like 3 weeks, but this was a full summer, start to finish, production meetings, everything. And I had to constantly negotiate on a daily basis how I would react to things. Like, oh, a year ago I would have done it like this. Now I have to do it like this, or this is how this will be perceived. So it was exhausting. I'll be the first to say it was exhausting. I've still failed, apparently. No matter how much thought I put into how I was being perceived or how I was presenting things or what have you, I still managed to piss off people. And for someone like me, that's a chronic people pleaser, that was a hard pill to swallow. I used to know, as Landyn, the male side of me, that I was pissing off people, but I kind of became comfortable with it and was like, oh, well, that's just the nature of this industry, and being in a management or administrative position, that just comes with the territory. But it was harder to negotiate that presenting as a female and wanting to be admired and respected and appreciated. So it was a lot of learning for me, obviously, and will continue to be. Now, I will say I was fortunate to have great conversations with many people there who gave me a lot of great affirmations. And there was several times where people were like, wait, you haven't been like, your authentic self for years? Like, this is fairly new? I was like, yeah, fairly new. I'm learning on the fly, basically. And that was the other thing. Like, I used to be able to just put on a baseball hat and grab my backpack and walk to the theater. And I think for me, I'm always conscious of making sure that at every given moment, especially if I'm on a college campus where I'm not just around theater people, that I'm being viewed as the way that I want to be viewed. And so that meant doing my hair, doing makeup, making sure I always look good. And so even that was just very different for me. And so, like I said, and I've said it before, it was just a summer for me, and I didn't plan this, but I allowed it to just happen, where I just got to do a lot of soul searching, and I got to grow, and I got to think, and I got to be okay with the quiet, and I got to just figure some things out. And that was important. I needed that. And now I'm a better person for it. And now I think I can be even a better leader, and I can be even a stronger voice for my community, because I now understand that maybe that is my purpose more than anything, is that I need to carry this mantle or this platform as much as I can. And that has led me to some other things that I'll be sharing and thinking about and stuff. But I just want to say, I missed doing the show. I missed having this outlet. And I heard from several of you over the course of that time, writing me emails, primarily my family members, like extended cousins and what have you, and friends that I almost feel are family, and like my wife's family. I heard from these people while I was away, and they were saying, "Oh, we miss you," or "We miss the show," and then when I came back home and I was kind of getting settled again, on the same day, like 4 different people from my life, like all said, like, "Is the show coming back? Are you going to do the show?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes, I swear, yes." Like, and it made my heart feel good, because again, even if 3 people are listening, that's incredible, because my own wife won't listen, and she's made it very clear she will not listen anymore. So, and I had to deal with that. Like, that was a thing in my life. Like, that was huge. The fact that I am doing this, and yes, I'm doing it for myself, but I also want it to be heard, and I want my words and thoughts to be heard, especially by those that I love. And I was hoping and thinking that would be my wife, and she just hates the platform, hates the medium, can't do it. And I totally get that. But that was, again, another thing that I had to deal with. So I missed it. I'm back. But I will say this, and this will be a caveat. As I'm going through at least this next year, I used to drive myself to the point of exhaustion, finishing a podcast on a Thursday, to well into Friday morning. We're talking 4 or 5 a.m. sometimes, uploading that, editing it, etc., doing it all so that I could meet that deadline, because I felt like not only was I letting the audience down, but I was letting myself down. That the one thing I learned from podcasting is, if you don't keep yourself on a schedule, if you don't stick to it, you'll put out like 30 episodes, if that, and it'll just kind of peter off. And I was like, oh no, I want to be like Mark Maron and do 16 years or, longer and do several shows. And if this is my career, I'm totally great with that. And I still am. But I also know and have learned that I have to give myself space, and I have to make sure that I'm putting myself first. And that's a big deal for me, because I am such a perfectionist, because I am so driven, because I'm in an industry that requires you constantly be putting yourself out there and reinventing yourself and what have you. And I think I learned and accepted that it may be necessary along the way to just kind of pause and put myself first. And so I will do everything in my power, along with the team of AJ and Ryan right now, and I hope that grows leaps and folds. Or hope that grows leaps and folds. Hope that grows abundantly. See, I'm so rusty. I've forgotten how to speak. I just hope that grows and that I have more of a support system to help make this happen, because it is a lot for one person to do. And then if that one person is also a perfectionist and cares very much, it just becomes a lot. I am a lot. I will say that to my dying day. I am a lot to handle. But I also have a lot of great gifts. So I thank you. I thank you for listening and putting up with me. And I thank you for, if this show does bring you something, I'm sorry that I kind of was selfish and took a couple of months to just kind of put things in perspective. But I do think we're all going to be better for it. I know I am. I already feel like I'm coming into this second year of being out and about and finally being able to be me with a new energy and a new drive. And I needed that, because I don't have to tell you that the world is not a very friendly place right now. And so I just knew I needed to work on me and making sure I was in a good place before I did this again. So, but I'm there now before the end of this episode. And I know it's already been long and it's a lot of me talking, and I'm sorry for that. I do have one more segment I have to roll out. My wife has given me shit for now a couple of years, saying, hey, you're like that old lady standing in the front yard, get off my lawn. And I would always be like, oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm flexible. I'm easygoing. No, I'm not. After working for a full summer in a summer stock kind of setting with an equity contract and what have you, and obviously coming in with kind of expectations or preconceived notions of what this would be based on what I know of the industry, what I know of this theater, what I know of what Hope Rep was, kind of, how people spoke of it when I was younger, going to these auditions and, kind of getting out there in the job world. I came into it with, this is what I think it's going to be. And then within very little time at all, had to kind of pivot and recalibrate. And that was hard for someone that is a curmudgeon, for someone that is jaded, for someone that is set in their ways. And I may have ruffled some feathers along the way, never intentionally, but just trying to figure things out. And I will say the one thing that I wish I could maybe do is make sure that anyone I'm coming in contact with, I wish maybe there was a t-shirt I could just say like, hey, listen, I'm trying to figure out how to live in this gender. So can I just maybe have some grace? Because it's a challenge. It really is. To negotiate this on a daily basis, it takes a lot of mental energy and emotional energy and just a lot of planning. I have to be I'll give you an example. Coming home, I drove to Michigan and back. I had to drive through the wonderful state of Indiana. And the entire time I did, I was white knuckling it, thinking like, this is the one state where shit can go down, where I can be pulled over, where I could get assaulted in a gas station. And so I did everything in my power, and I drove back and forth 4 times total. So every time I was going through Indiana, I would, just hang on for dear life, make sure I didn't have to go to the bathroom or need a gas or anything, because I was really legitimately afraid. And that kind of sense happened all summer. And so the thing I just hope to share with all of you, or maybe leave you with, is that making this decision is not just as easy as saying like, that's it, I know who I am and I'm going to be it. It then takes, especially now, a lot of prep and a lot of energy and a lot of like just planning ahead and thinking ahead and, allowing yourself to even think about like, okay, if I do get pulled over, what do I do? How do I react? What's the first call I make? What's the first thing I do? Allowing myself to get to that point so that there are no surprises, or I feel at least I've planned for everything. It's a lot. It is a lot. And it's become more of a job or more of a task than I ever thought it would. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying like, that's part of the deal that I didn't necessarily think about or really understand or know until I've been doing it. And so with that, I am going to roll into this next segment. I think you'll enjoy this theme song. This theme song I did play for my wife, and she did love this, and she did agree that I needed to include this segment pretty much from here on out. So without any further ado, here is Get Off My Lawn.
Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn. A perfect song to capture who I am. Get off my lawn. I yell till dawn. Get off my fucking lawn. Get off my lawn.
So this segment is obviously going to evolve, but because I am 52, because I've been doing this for a while, and as I said, I'm jaded, curmudgeon-y, set in my ways, I just feel I need to also point out concerns along the way and maybe have a conversation about these things, or help people get to a resolution, or just put it out there, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And so one of my big time observations from this summer, and again, I didn't handle every situation that great, and I know that, but I'm very much afraid of what is happening in terms of just work ethic and realistic expectations by some of these young, college kids or those that have just graduated college about to go into the industry, kind of where they're at. I worked with about 118 people, all relatively the same age. So we're talking like around 20 to, let's say, 25, 26-ish. Our leads in Mary Poppins were older, actors, not too old. They look fantastic. Shout out to Corey and Lydia. But, they've been in the industry for a while. It's been years since they were in college. In Corey's case, he's been on Broadway. And Lydia's case, she was on a huge national tour of Jesus Christ Superstar, which was amazing. And both working constantly. And so, I kind of leaned towards them and looked at them as kind of being my beacons that I could be like, oh, okay, you guys get it. And then, of course, we had older artists as directors and choreographers and what have you. And then our artistic director was a faculty member. But other than that, there was just a lot of young people. And it would kill me to hear stories of there was a TYA show, Theater for Young Audiences. It was Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. And I heard from many people that one of the actors who was kind of basically a lead in the show refused to do a meet and greet with the kids and family members that would come to the show. Now, that was devastating to me on several reasons. One, as a young actor who first got into theater or even experienced theater by watching touring groups come to my school and stuff and knowing how important that was, I was really let down because I have gone back to Theater for Young Audiences time and time again, and I would continue to do so. I think it's very important. I think that connection and what can happen there, it's bigger than any of us may even know. And it just really upset me that there was an actor, a young actor, just graduated college, who was like, nope, not going to do that. Especially when all of these performances, for the most part, were outdoors. And while it wasn't as hot as it was in most of the country, in Michigan that summer, there were some very hot days and hot, moments. And so we're asking these families and kids to come to an outdoor setting in the morning, basking in the sun for 45 minutes to watch this show. And then I don't get to meet one of the leads afterwards. I was not a fan of that. So that really rocked my world and didn't sit right with me. And then just this work ethic idea. There were days where, because it was a repertory theater, we only had rehearsal for 6 hours, and then there would maybe be a 2-3 hour break and then a show that night. And I would hear from interns or people around me oh, this day is so long. I don't know how I'm going to make it. And then tomorrow I got another 7-hour day, and I'm just like, whoa, do you understand that when I was your age, doing summer stock and doing 5 shows in the summer, we would rehearse, we would work in the shop. I remember one of my favorite summer stock theaters ever, Weather Vane Playhouse in Ohio. We would work in the shop for 2 to 3 hours every morning, and that was expected. And I loved those opportunities and really grew a lot. And then maybe go right into a dance class or an acting class or what have you, do a little lunch, rehearse in the afternoon, dinner break, rehearsing that evening till 11:30 midnight. And then even as we got closer to production week, do light hangs and paint and help out. And so there were days where we were working 18, 19 hours. Was it exhausting? Sure. Was I tired? Sure. But I was doing what I loved. And I was with people that I loved. And I was getting these new experiences. And I was not going to let any of that pass me by without enjoying it and really basking in it. And so I don't know if I'm just wired differently, but this entire group, I encouraged them so many times to get together, create memories, go into Chicago on an off day, go bowling, do a whitewater rafting trip or something, or go to the beach. And they weren't doing that. Some did it, I heard and saw over the course of the summer, but for the most part, they just kind of went in their own separate worlds. And maybe part of that was because we didn't have a central cast housing. They were all kind of spread out all over this campus. Maybe that was part of it. But I just felt overall, the idea of what it is to grind in this industry, what it is to kind of basically pay your dues, which we all have to do no matter what. The idea that the job's not over until it's over, and it takes everyone. I just felt like that was lacking. And I just didn't feel this kind of drive and this kind of like energy, like, hey, this is so exciting. This is my first professional gig ever. Or this is my first professional gig after being a graduate and about to start my career. Like, I didn't see really that in a large majority of people be on their minds or be part of their process or be part of their work ethic. And it scared me. It scared me a lot. And like I said, these are kids that several are going and graduated from really good colleges and really good programs, like programs that I know take pride in how many of their students and graduates are working at a high level and what have you. And so I was just kind of like, whoa, what is going on? And I think there's another problem that I'll speak to in another episode of this segment here that I think is maybe even a larger problem that must be looked at. But I'll just say in general, for today's segment of rolling this out, that was my big takeaway. Was I was just kind of shocked at the lack of passion, at the lack of work ethic, at the lack of drive, at the lack of understanding that this is hard work and there are long days, and there are days where you're not appreciated or congratulated because everyone's exhausted or because everyone's working just as hard. And it seemed like when all was said and done, there were several people in my orbit from this summer that were very needy, that constantly needed, pats on the back and praise. And, praise is great. We all thrive on praise. But like, you're not going to get it 24/7 in this industry. And there are going to be times where people are going to have to be firm with you, especially because, again, this is a business. There's a lot of money at stake and there's a lot going on. And, I'm not saying you can't be nice all the time. Like, you should be nice, but there are also moments where you've got to, kind of be firm and say like, hey, like, we have safety aspects at play here that we got to take seriously, or we have union policies that we need to follow that are bigger than any of us, that are mandated by, an entity bigger than us. And there just seemed to be a lack consistently in understanding of like, this is where we're at and this is what's expected. And if you're not at that place, at least I believe, and this was true back as I was coming up, you would be in the minority. That the reason why I have the ethic and the attitude and kind of the drive that I do is because I saw that time and time and time again in every job I worked at. And for the most part, the larger majority of people, the ones that were, going on to a next gig right away, that's the one thing they had in common. They had that drive, they had that ability to grind, they had that passion, they had the understanding to know that like, okay, I don't want to be in this town or at this theater forever, but it's a great place for me to learn. It's a great place for me to grow, form relationships and connections and network, and then be able to go to the next place. It just seemed like there was a lot missing. And if this is how the industry is writ large now, because again, ever since the pandemic, my jobs and opportunities have become, more scattered shot and not consistent. And then, obviously with this whole identity change of myself and in terms of changing my gender, like I'm having to see the world differently through that lens too. If this is where we're at, then I guess I'm going to have to be the one to change. But I also can't believe that it is, because now with the pressure of more money and artists, organizations closing at a rapid rate and the government clamping down on funding and stuff, I would just think that there would be more of a pressure and more of attention put on what does success look like? What does a phenomenal artistic product look like? What does collaboration look like? What does making great art look like? And I don't think it looks like complaining after working 3 hours that, you know, you still have another 7 hours ahead of you, and then you get to sleep all night. And then, you know, your day starts tomorrow morning at 9 or 10 a.m. Like, I don't remember being that young and having that much energy and excitement, and also feeling like, oh, I'm so overworked. Oh, these days are so long. Or, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Like, and I don't think the people around me had that. And so again, maybe things have changed, but I find it hard to believe that they've changed that much. And so that's what this old broad wants to talk about today and leave you with in this new segment called Get Off My Lawn, where I'll be in the future sharing more curmudgeoning, jaded, set in my ways, hot takes and perspectives. And for those that want to hear these things, great. And if anything, my hope is that some of these young folks that I'm talking about, maybe you know who you are, or maybe you'll hear something and be like, wait, is she talking about me? And maybe reevaluate, or maybe put things in perspective. You know, I know, being a young person at one point in my life myself, I never did this, but I know that it was always thought like, oh, young people don't listen to the older people. Whereas for me, that's all I listened to. I was very close with older people throughout my career and throughout my life. I saw wisdom in them that it would have been foolish of me not to take advantage of, and to hear their stories. And so I've always been someone that looked towards my elders for advice and guidance and words of wisdom, and anything that they were willing to share with me. And the problem back then was a lot of older folks didn't want to share. They came up in a time where you just didn't talk about your feelings, or didn't talk about observations, or you just kind of went through life and just did what you did, and that was it. Now that I am getting to be older and in that older elder state, and as a society, I think we're better at talking and sharing and compartmentalizing and you know, just speaking out. I'm here. I'm willing to give advice. I'm willing to pass on what I've learned. I'm willing to share my perspectives, and I want to continue to do that, because I do think on top of that all, I have a very unique perspective that I can share. I've lived in that middle lane my entire life. I've lived in the nuance. I've lived in the world of the gray, where I had to see both sides. And I do think that I can be of value. You know, I've joked that I would love to do a podcast on dating, where I can give really amazing dating advice, because I've been in rooms where, you know, it's all guys, and when all guys are together, they talk a certain way and they say things that they don't say to anyone else. And then I've been in rooms where I've been with all women, and the same thing happens there. And so I kind of feel like I have this ability, and I think that's why throughout history, people like myself, or people that are two spirits, are kind of revered, because there is a wisdom and there is a kind of perspective and just a view that I think people in my community, people that are like me, see, and maybe aren't always willing to be so forthright about, or be willing to discuss, but I am. I'm an open book. So I'd love to share my perspective with anyone that's willing to have it. And especially when it comes to this industry. This industry is all I know. It's all I've loved. It's all I've ever wanted to do. It's all I'm going to do. And when I mean industry, I mean specifically theater. Like, I love theater. I love producing live entertainment, and being a part of live entertainment. And so I probably am more nerdy and probably have more philosophies and thoughts and views than your average person. And there were a couple of people this summer who saw that, I think, interns primarily, and were kind of like, oh, hey, Landyn, I'm going to look to you to be a mentor, and I'm going to look to you to be a reference, and will you write me a letter of recommendation? And hey, we have an hour of downtime. Will you just talk to me? Just give me stories, or give me tidbits, or what have you. And there were a few that did that. And back in my day, there would have been more. And that would have been top of mind for many of us, because we would have either been told to take advantage of those experiences, or we would have learned that those experiences are huge and valuable. And that's what really can come out of these kind of summer stock situations and these organizations where they blend young college students and interns with some older professionals or people that have been around. Like, that's kind of what you're after, is that perfect blending of excitement and energy and youthfulness, then with maybe the older folks who are jaded, again, like I said, who need to get that fire back or maybe get that energy back. And it's just a beautiful blend when it happens and happens well. And so my observation is that, especially when it comes to the younger college students and younger adults that are in this industry, I'm a little worried. I'm just a little worried. Because this is not an easy industry. It will never be an easy industry. And if you don't love it, love everything about it. And I'm not saying you have to be obsessive like me. I don't think that was right. And I wouldn't wish this on anyone, truly. But you have to be hungry and you have to love what you're doing and almost have that sense of like, you're paying me to do this. If you asked 24 hours of me, I would give it happily because I get to do all I've ever wanted to do. And so I was just really taken aback when I heard so many things from so many different people on a regular basis, just, complaints and not even, like I said, that hard, like, because of the repertory theater component and because we had many moving parts and many different venues and what have you, like these rehearsal days were not very long compared to what I'm used to. So I just wanted to say that and say it out loud and not really back away from it either. I have a podcast called No Fucks Left, and I feel like I've been doing myself a bit of disservice because I've been somewhat guarded because I've been trying to always say the right things. And that's another thing that I learned from this summer is that, if I'm going to walk the walk, I have to talk the talk, and I have to not be so worried about making sure that everyone likes me or that everyone likes what I have to say, because that's not the case. No matter how you go through life, not everyone is going to like you. And I'm learning, like I said, I am a people pleaser. I am someone who's always wanted people to like them and appreciate them and have fun with them. And the few times in my life where I really pissed off someone or someone really had a beef with me, it set me back. I was just kind of like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, I almost felt like I was this monster and didn't understand how they were seeing this in me. And that happened this summer too. It was wild. Especially because this summer I was not even 50% as intense as I normally could be. Because I knew my job and I only had to do that job and I knew what the boundaries of that job were. And so I was quite comfortable in it. And so it was still wild that I had seemingly the problems that I had. And, I'm going to work through that, talk through it. It was a great experience though, when all is said and done. And I did love it. And I did love the people I worked with. Like, even though I saw at times there were some reasons to kind of be a little nervous or what have you, they were good people. And they still, I think this industry does bring out amazing people. This industry brings out empathetic artists who just feel life and deal with humanity on a level differently than others. And that has always been the one thing I've loved about being in theater and creating and being with artists is that, it brings some of the best of us together in ways that are just absolutely magnificent and beautiful and life-changing.
I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye, bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't cry.
Well, that's it. It's a wrap on episode number 30. I thank you so much. It's so great to be back. And next week, we have a very special guest. I have Kevin Chamberlain on the show. We had a delightful talk. It was a phenomenal interview. He's such a hoot. So that's next week. In the meantime, hey, love yourself. Take time for yourself. take time to just sit in the silence if you're like me, because that was, again, a very valuable thing I learned from this summer. And then as you're doing that, remember to also take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and always lead with love. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.
I have no fucks.
No Fucks Left is presented by Transplendent Media. The creator and host is Landyn Shaw. Associate producer, AJ LUEBBERT. Media manager, Ryan BALMER. And our graphics and logo design is from WALLY SPENCE.
I have no fucks left. No, no. I have no fucks, right? Oh, oh. I have no fucks left. No, no. So fuck off. I'm busy. Bye, bye. Piss off. Not sorry. Don't